The eighth track is The Dark Tower. Now, this one's kind of the odd one out in the whole album in my eyes. It started out after a dream. I was having a bath one evening, fell asleep in the bath, and kind of in my head woke up in this really dark, misty, purpley haze kind of place, and there was nothing around except for this single solitary tower, and it was just completely dark. There was no light coming out of it. It was this pitch black void, I suppose, and there was no way out, and really the only escape was to try and navigate this tower and beat this tower. You could say it's kind of like that big boss in a video game that you can't beat, the one that's there and just stopping you from progressing any further. That was essentially the idea behind The Dark Tower. I wanted it to be very dark and heavy, so I went with the lowest, sludgiest tuning that I could manage on my guitars, and the end product did exactly that. Really, really had a lot of fun putting it together, but I never in all my time of playing guitar thought that I'd be labelled as a gent player by playing that song. So it turned out to be the gent song on the album, which was quite unexpected, but as I said, really great fun putting it together. It does so much stuff. Really dark, really thrashy, really heavy, and I think really pictured that image of an object or an obstacle in your way, whether it's just in a video game or if it's on the path to recovery, that one thing that's stopping you from reaching your target. And that is The Dark Tower. The penultimate song of the album, number 9, is Ethereal Skies. And this was also part of the Universe trilogy, which started with Awakening and then went on to The Wings of Time. Just like those two, there was no real concept as to what, or expectation as to what those songs would sound like. And it definitely fit the bill by the end of it. I started with the idea of just lots of synths, lots of strings, and building up, kind of like just drifting in space. And I remember there was a real wow moment about halfway through where I'd finished that first synth bit, and it was, I wonder what would happen if I went off-piste and kind of went back to my normal sort of guitar routine, where I just have this big bang and explosion of heavy guitars in your face. Tried it, sat back in my chair, had the speakers on, and as soon as it hit, it was just like a cinematic moment where you're pushed back in your chair and just, wow, what was that? And it really, really stuck, and I was so happy with that. The song itself, whereas Awakening was the start of everything and The Wings of Time was the passing of time and things developing and changing, this is the grand finale, the culmination of everything, the great big build-up that leads to the supernova in the sky. Just colours and life and energy everywhere. And it also adds as a little bit of a fitting touch, as it's the end of the album, the end of that emotional journey with mental health that I went on. And it really does serve those two purposes of building up and finishing off beautifully. Once I got past that little guitar section, though, it was then a case of how to finish the song. And I remember having the chords all set up and ready to go, and it was just a case of, let's just grab a guitar and have a great big moving, melodic, slightly shreddy solo, where it just soars and screams and shows the world that everything has now reached this final point. And again, I think I was really successful doing that. So as we now reach the end with Ethereal Skies, there's one song left to go, and that is Lost and Found. So here we are at the finale, track number 10, Lost and Found. Ethereal Skies essentially ended the album, it ended the journey. I wanted one more song on the album though, and I very deliberately made this decision that I would write the first 9 songs as part of essentially the concept of the whole album, where those 9 would go together. And I reserved the final slot for Lost and Found, which I knew would be the title track, but I wanted it essentially as a standalone track to show really the next stage of what I'm doing with my songwriting. Picture it as an evolution. We had Renatus, where I was just essentially figuring out my own guitar playing potential. Lost and Found built upon that some more and added the emotive songwriting. This is essentially the technical build-up of what I'm doing now, where you've got harmonies thrown in, you've got more melodies, you've got some more technical writing, some weird time signatures, which I normally do anyway, but as most technical guitar players like to do, we have to up our game and keep on top of what we do. And I wanted this one to be the real technically challenging song to keep my mind busy as well as some of your ears busy as well. In terms of what I wanted it to do, it had to build upon everything that was there already with the first 9 songs, but bring it to kind of, a cinematic close. It sounds like a great big soaring triumphant song where it's lots of big open chords with chorus effects on, lots of harmonies, so you get that huge wall of sound again. But then it's also got that very traditional heavy prog metal chugging, thrashy sort of sound to it, kind of like in the old Dream Theater days. That sort of sound is what I was aiming for. And I had great fun putting it together, just like I did with the rest of the album, but it was very challenging because it was right at the end of the writing process, and as I'm sure most people would find when you reach that point, it's kind of, I'm running out of ideas now. And no, it was definitely a challenge to keep it going, but after lots of experimentation, lots of jamming it out, found ideas that were good enough to fit the bill, and put together possibly actually my favourite song on the album. Every time I hear it, it brings that elevated, emotional and inspirational feeling that I went through all of this journey and came out stronger and much better on the other side of it. There is always a way around it, and for me it was music. So if anyone else out there is struggling with those sorts of things, find your art, you find your way, whether it's music, writing, talking to people, art. Find your little thing and make the most of it. And that, I believe, is it. Lost and Found, the song and the album. And that brings to a close the documentary of Lost and Found, the story behind the music. Thank you very much for checking out episode 3. If you head over to my BANDCAMP page, you will see, and I'm really excited to announce this, that physical CD copies of both Lost and Found and Renatus are now available for purchase. If you can grab one, that would be great. That's great support for me. Obviously, I'm really happy to sign them, put little messages in them, anything that you'd like to do on that front. Go for it and ask, and I'll put the request in. And that is it. So take care of yourself, stay safe, and I will either see you on the road with Neanderthal, possibly even the solo project that could come together at some point in the future, I hope. Failing that, on a YouTube gig or a YouTube cover, anything like that. Take care of yourselves and see you soon.